Hey, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Tim and Jim Show. I'm here in Northeast Pennsylvania, just by the Delaware River. Not really, but and I'm so excited to be here. Our amazing guest today, Debbie Burke, I met through. Hi, Debbie. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Hello.
I met her through. I used to freelance for her at the Pocono Business Journal in Pennsylvania quite a while ago, so it's great to reconnect with her. But Jim, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. How about you? It's good to see you. I know it's been busy between doing some remote production work for IBM Research, and I know you helped me out last week with Gail Robertson and her work she's doing with Gail now. So that was a lot of. Hopefully, you had fun.
Yes, thank you for that, Jim.
that.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
And keeping my fingers crossed. I got to get my little sports thing in. The Braves are in the National League Championship Series. They did lose yesterday, but they're up 2-1. And I actually went to games 1 and 2, and that was like amazing to be there in the bottom of the ninth when they like won both games like at their last at bat. So you don't normally get to do that when you're talking about playoff baseball. So gotta live each day to its fullest. It's like, why not? Let's go to the game and have some fun. So keeping our fingers crossed that I'll be going to the World Series next week.
Wow.
So we'll see. They got to win 2 more, but I know all those Dodger fans are going to start chiming in, blah, 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 but that's okay.
So Debbie, it's great to have you here and reconnect with you. Tell everyone a little bit about you and what you do. It's great to have you.
Okay. Thanks, Tim and Jim, for having me on. Tim, we know each other, like you said, through Pocono Business Journal around 2006, 2007. My background has largely been communications, PR, writing, and so on, marketing. And when I was editor of the Pocono Business Journal, I hired all the stringers and the freelancers and was overseeing the graphic designers and the photographers and stuff. And I'm not sure how I came upon you, Tim, but you were aces because you were always to deadline and your content and your fact checking was done. And, it was great working with you. And I'm so happy to see you have this platform now and you've just kind of blossomed and taken off. So it's great to be back with you.
Likewise.
Yeah.
So tell us, what are you doing now?
Well, I live in Virginia Beach, and we had relocated here a year ago. And I'm 63, so rather than reinvent myself and find another job, and actually I'd been working in healthcare for the past few years on the administrative side, not clinical, I wanted to get back to writing. But it's very hard to just jump in as an author and, make a sustainable, living wage from the get-go. And I thought, what can I do? Well, I used my editorial background and I decided to start an editing services company. So I edit everything, but largely manuscripts from authors and mostly newbie authors who have no idea what the journey is all about. And having been there through many different angles, traditional, small boutique, and now self-publishing, I'm able to be an author coach also. So the name of the business is called Queen Esther Publishing, LLC. And so I edit my manuscripts from home. I work from home and sometimes the beach and sometimes Starbucks. I'm one of those people on my laptop in Starbucks. Yes, that's me. Proud.
Yeah, you said Starbucks and not Dunkin'. Are you okay with that?
I know we had this conversation the other day. Yes. It's okay. No. It's okay. We still like
all
Dunkin'.
Right. Okay. Listen, some people say, like my husband say, they burn the beans in Starbucks, and he does prefer Dunkin'. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'm very neutral on the subject. So
that's right. You said you like tea.
Let us know in the comments. Do you prefer coffee or tea?
Yeah, chai tea especially. Yeah.
Chai tea. My sister likes that. But we should thank everyone who's tuning in. Gabe Leal is here. Super producer Gabe Leal is here in the house. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi.
Chris Stone. Thanks for being here, Chris. Chris created that amazing intro video for our show, and he co-hosts Dealcasters Live, another show with Jim on Amazon. So shout out to you, Chris. Dorothy is here from Canada. Good morning, Dorothy. Jennifer Zahari is here. She says, need an amazing editor. Talk to this woman. Thanks to your editing knowledge and skills, Debbie.
Oh, thank you. Very kind of you. Thanks, Jen.
Chris says, coffee, burnt beans for the win. Hashtag Team Starbucks. I think I have to go. There's too many Starbucks people here.
Oh, boy.
Today I'm Team Keurig, so just so you know.
Today I'm Team StreamYard mug, but have water in it. Shh, don't tell.
Coffee wars at its finest.
Yes, exactly. But today we're going to be talking about, what are we going to be talking about, Jim?
We're going to be talking about how you can actually, I guess we'd say, how a blog can make you become instrumental in building your author brand and the instrument, because apparently, Debbie, you play the saxophone.
I do. So thank you for that little pun, by the way, entitling this episode. Yeah, I play, I'd have to say I play a highly mediocre manner, but I love it. And right now I'm not playing actively with a group. And then, with the lockdown and shutdown, I mean, you can only imagine that instrumentalists are not going to be near each other spewing, particulates. So,
right.
But now as an author, and an editor, I'm so busy, I can't really serve many different creative masters and do any of them well enough. So I'm not playing right now, but I do have a saxophone and I do pick it up once in a while.
That's
awesome.
Cool.
That's awesome. So Jim, do you want to take the first question for Debbie?
Yeah. So Debbie, why did you decide to write a blog, and what topic is it, and why?
Okay. I decided to write a blog because I had almost finished my first book, which is this, The Poconos in B flat.
Oh.
And the Poconos refers to, Tim, because it's up in Northeast Pennsylvania in the U.S. And this is all about the jazz scene up where I was living at the time. I'm no longer there. I'm in Virginia Beach. And at the time, and this was, a little over 10 years ago, people were saying you have to build your author platform. Now, what the heck does that mean? That meant some social media, which you use as a primary source of, getting getting the word out and getting exposure. And the conundrum I had was that a lot of authors think this means that their blog has to be about their journey as an author and their books and their writing. And I find that becomes very meta, and you become almost like, buy my book. Here's another book, buy it, and I didn't want to do that. And not to disparage the great author blogs out there, but I didn't feel that I had anything new to contribute, even though my journey is unique. I didn't want to do another author blog. So I decided to go, flip it on its side and say, okay, my content, what is my subject matter? It's jazz. And do I feel comfortable kind of branding myself like this? What if I want to write about food or something? And I said, I'm still permitted by law to write about food and other things, but I wanted to kind of find my way with a brand. I said, okay, jazz to me, it's an interest, it's a passion, and it's wide enough that I can find enough to write about without having to talk about primarily my books. My books are a byproduct of what I write about. And I'll tell you what that means in a minute. So I decided to write a jazz blog. And that's how that came about. If you want to know how I came to write about jazz to begin with, as Jim said, I've been playing saxophone, and I was aligned with the university community band and playing jazz. And I was just curious. I wasn't writing. I mean, not for myself. I was writing either in a marketing department and such, but I wasn't writing books. And I was thinking about, I wonder if there are any famous jazz people around here. And I just started to go to the Deer Head Inn, which is like the hub of jazz activity since, probably the 30s, 40s, and so on. It has a very rich history up in Northeast PA again. And who all was playing at, the Deer Head and so on, and found out that there are a bunch of famous people living in the Poconos And like probably many authors, especially of nonfiction, I said, oh, wow, I really want to learn more about this. Let me see the books that have been written. And they turn around and see that there's no literature on it or nothing specifically with what they want. And that spurs the author to say, well, heck, I'm going to write that book. So that's how I got on this track. And I liked the experience so much, although it was a very interesting publisher. I'll talk about that later. It's what's now called a vanity press, but that's okay. I'm forgiven that.
Chris Stone has a question for you, Debbie. He says, who are some of your biggest influences on the sax?
Let's see. Lester Young, Houston Person, Coltrane, of course. All the classics. And the thing that I'll get into about writing my blog is that I meet new ones practically every day. I get slammed with press releases, which I want. It's not that it's unsorry. I want this data coming in and, pitching me to write about them. So, who's my favorite from day to day can change, because when I get, they used to send, hard copy CDs in the mail, but I know it's an expense. And I kept telling them, the promoters, don't send me material because it costs you. Just send me the links, So I listen to, either on SoundCloud or Bandcamp or whatever, and just discovering new people every day. And I do urge people, if you're into music, whatever genre, give a listen to what's happening in the contemporary scene, even if it's like micro local, because you never know who you're going to discover.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And thank you everyone who's tuning in. It's great to have you all here. Russ Hedge, Chris Stone, Nancy Barrows is here. Jennifer Zahari, thank you. Let us know where you're tuning in from, and let us know what questions you have for Debbie about blogging. Debbie, how has blogging helped you grow your presence as an author?
Well, it's interesting because, like I said, I didn't start out by creating an author blog. It's a blog about jazz. So the first thing I did was I had to create this from nothing. So I looked at the local scene and I reached out to local artists and so on. And the very first thing was that when I introduced myself to a musician by email, I would say I'm the author of this book, and I, tell them about my first book, and that lends some, street cred for me as a, jazz aficionado, not an expert by any means, but someone with the passion for it. And I said, I wrote this book, and I just started this blog, and I'd love to interview you. So I would reach out, and that would be my very, very first point of exposure, was to musicians on a one-to-one basis, whom I wanted to interview. I want to point out here, though, that the interview process is like, people, didn't know where I was coming from and wondered am I charging for this? Am I promoting? Am I a PR person? And it's all for free. It's all gratis, because this gives me content. Without it, I have no content. And what I do with the content helps me, advance myself as an author, in indirect ways. So the first point of exposure was with these musicians and telling them that, I wrote this book. So some of them would, check it out. But then it had an exponential effect. And I think that's the brilliance of social media, is the exponential effect that's accidental, unintended, and even unknown sometimes. So these musicians could be in a rehearsal and say, hey, this woman just out of the blue asked to interview me, and she wrote this. You just never know this splinter kind of effect that happens when you reach somebody who has, who's active in their field. In time, promoters and PR people learned about me and started sending me press releases. And of course, in my signature tagline at the bottom of my email is my Amazon author link, my editorial link, and the link to my books. So that, it's a set of eyes. Now, are they going to go buy my book because they see it in the signature line? No, but if they, maybe because they're curious about, they're in that jazz world. And if not, at least it's caused an impression on their eyeballs and so on. And from there, I grew my media list, and it's all interrelated. I mean, my media list is tremendous. And, I have the blog to thank for this. Oh, also, and the other thing is that my presence as an author at the end of every interview, which is a Q&A, okay, because I found it very easy to write, Q&A style. Oh, and it's debbieburkeauthor.com. Now, there is another Debbie Burke writer, and that's not me, and she writes murder mysteries. And we got to know each other because I introduced myself to her because somebody responded to a thread on the Authors Guild website and said, Debbie Burke, blah, blah, blah. And I said, that's not me. I don't write murder mysteries. And we came to know each other. She's based in Montana, and she's a hoot. And she's about my age, and we just had a big laugh about it. In fact, we interviewed each other and posted it on social media. So we each got a hit from that, you know. Anyway, it's debbieburkeauthor.com. That's me. And so each blog article that I'll do, at the bottom, I have a graphic of one of my books. I'm going to show you my other books real quick because I don't know what opportunity and the other questions. This is the book I just came out with. Klezmer is it's ethnic, it's world music, you know, from, you know, Eastern Europe, European Jews, and so on. And it's there's a lot of synergy between jazz and other genres. So I think people are, in the music world, people are finding that genres don't have, you know, waterproof kind of borders. There's a lot of overlap. And then this is another Tasty Jazz Jams for Our Times.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, and I'm coming out with volume 2. Now, those are compilations of my blog interviews. So that's another way that you could, it's like a blog book. That's another way to use content that's already been created and compile it. Now, I had to update it because some of these people I interviewed in 2018 and so on. You have to update it and, you know, make sure and pass it through your interviewees, make sure they, you know, agree with how they came across in certain questions and so on, and, you know, get photo permissions and all that. So, I mean, I make my blog work for me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because I'm lazy and I don't want to do extra work. And then I have 2 novels. One of them is, this is called Glissando. And it's a spicy, sassy love story. It is absolutely not erotica, but it does have some sex in it. So if you like jazz and sex, and who doesn't, you know, and then the last one, and this is Icarus Flies Home. And this is the story of self-discovery, genealogy, and a bassist in New York City and a personal journey with music. So all of these in different variations, I'm going to post at the bottom of each blog interview with a link. And it's not always the same graphic, so people aren't seeing, you know, oh, it's, you know, Debbie Burke author, Debbie Burke author. And sometimes I'll have, you know, snippets of reviews that I'll make a graphic of. And so there's just an infinite number of ways to get more mileage out of my blog interviews and get some eyes on my product.
That is great. Yeah, so now we're going to take a brief break for a message from our sponsor, StreamYard, which is a live streaming platform we use every week to produce this show, which we love. So we will see you back here in 15 seconds. Here we go. And we are back. We are back here on the Tim and Jim Show talking with Debbie Burke all about blogging today, which I'm really fascinated about. And yes, so Debbie, let's dig into, we've talked a bit about blogging. Let's talk a little bit about social media. You have this blog, but then in terms of social, how do you use that as an author? And just kind of how does that work in terms of the content you put on your blog versus on social?
I like WordPress. I find it easy to navigate, pretty intuitive, pretty clear. They do change the interface every now and then, and that really ticks me off. I don't know why they have to keep, you know, modifying stuff. However, all in all, it's really good. They have good tech support. They have a good chat, and they're pretty thorough. WordPress will feed to my LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And it doesn't seem to have a widget for Instagram, so I have to post that separately. And that's about the social media platforms that I could, sustain. I mean, one of the things I was going to just mention here, and you two know more than anyone, is that you can't be a master at all the different platforms, and you could die trying, and it's not worth it because it dilutes your energy. So I always say, like, pick one and then one or two others that you like a lot. You don't have to be present and active and so intense on all of them, and you can be. For LinkedIn, the reason I like LinkedIn is because when my blog feeds to that, I can also post it in the special interest group. So I'm involved in the groups in LinkedIn on the music side and on the author side. And you could understand that a lot of these groups don't want you to self-promote. So there's a way to self-promote without self-promoting, and I've become a master at that, without getting kicked off or having your comment deleted. So, I mean, you have to give bona fide, give and take on any social media. You can't just say, okay, buy my book, and here's my link. You have to, you have to have valuable contributions and comment on other people's stuff. It's not all about you. And that's why I like LinkedIn. Facebook, I tag the musicians, and Facebook seems to be a little more interactive, whereas LinkedIn to me feels a little more static, and I'm not sure why.
Well, Debbie, I wanted to ask you specifically with the LinkedIn groups. It seems like, I know that's been a big complaint. I think of a lot of us on LinkedIn is, as much as we want to be in groups, like, Facebook groups are very active. LinkedIn groups seems like you just don't see a lot of activity, and maybe it's because you don't know people are posting. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I don't know what happened. There was some change. Who took over LinkedIn? I mean, I don't know the history of ownership.
Microsoft.
Okay, pre that, I found that my groups rose to the top of my, as soon as I signed in, and it seemed like people were more interactive. I didn't have to hunt for, okay, who was posting in this group? Now it's a menu, or it's a list along the left side. You have to specifically choose it, and it's not an automatic feed, and I don't like that. I do find that the interactivity is much less on LinkedIn. You will see some groups that have thousands of people, and you're like, where are all these people? And you usually see like one poster who keeps posting the same thing. It's like, all right, buddy, is there no admin here? Excuse me, I'm sorry. So I'm a little disappointed with LinkedIn, although I keep trying,
Yeah, Chris Stone has a question. He said, I'm fascinated by jazz improvisation. Do you feel as a jazz musician that a creative person can apply these techniques in their business?
Oh, absolutely. Definitely. Good question, Chris. Thank you. As far as being flexible and nimble and being able to pivot, you may, as a jazz player, when you have the floor for your solo, you just kind of go off and you pull from your repertoire of, phrases that you've used as a musician, but you don't want to sound the same every time. And the circumstances are never the same. You're playing live, it's a different audience, different, collaborators and so on. So just like in business, you have to be flexible, you have to be creative and think of different ways to do it. Like, nobody really taught me some of the things that I do to spring off my blog to get more exposure. I just tried it and it works. And, if people objected to it, I think you would hear, I would hear it. And I would consider their, objections like, well, we don't want you promoting your book on here. I said, but I would say, but I'm not. I'm talking about this musical concept, and I happen to be a jazz author, and my banner on LinkedIn has my books, a graphic of my books. And you do have to be creative, and you can't, it's great to have a plan, and, you start out with a year's plan, what you want to accomplish, but you definitely have to be able to improvise. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Jim, do you want to take this last question for Debbie?
Yeah, Debbie, post-lockdown, what are the areas that you will expand to for publicizing your books?
Well, now that things, have started to open up, definitely going to live events. And when I'm at live events. I love speaking to, like, let's say you're waiting for the show to come on, or there's a break or whatever, just talking to people. Naturally you're going to talk about the music. Oh, wasn't so and so great? Here in Virginia Beach, I heard jazz at Lincoln Center, and I heard Wynton. I saw Wynton Marsalis for the first time. I lived in the Northeast, Tim, for decades, and I never went to jazz at Lincoln Center. Now in Virginia Beach, I'm so glad they came to the Sandler Center here. And, the crowd there was like so grateful. We were still masked, still great, so grateful to be out hearing live music. And I think Wynton and his band was like, you could see it was an actual literal pleasure for them to be performing live again. And those are opportunities to mix with other people who are interested in jazz, which is what I write about. But I don't whip my book out at events, but, conversations can organically lead to, these kind of things. Other events that are now, booking are, crafts fairs, and let's say Christmas, a Christmas expo. And as an author or a creative, whether you have CDs or whether you're an artist and you have paintings and so on, I mean, these are really pretty cheap usually, on the local level. You could get a table. And the biggest thing I could say is, I'm actually, like a real solid introvert. But you got to shed that when you're at these events, because people they're not going to see the passion that you have for your subject matter and to meet them. And you just have to come out of your shell and, interact with people, because I think that's really what gets people interested in what you have to say creatively.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that, Debbie. This has been an amazing conversation. Tell people how they can connect with you after the show. How else could they find more information about you and what you do?
Yeah, well, my blog is debbieburkeauthor.com. And I'm on Twitter. My handle is @jazzauthor. And I'm on Facebook. I think it's Debbie Burke Jazz. But I'm just going to tell everyone my email address because, that's fine. So it's Deb Column. I used to write a column for the paper in Northeast PA. So it's Deb Column, COLUMN, @gmail. So anyone reach out if you have questions about, you're an author and you want to know, what I've done that's been successful so far to get, eyes on my books, and, how I found reviewers, people to review my book, and, venues like yours. Again, thanks so much for having me. This is amazing that you have such a variety of guests here, and it's all useful stuff, because, anyone who's growing a business needs to know, you need to know your socials, that's it.
That's true. That's true. Thank you so much, Debbie. Before we go, we just want to we want to thank you all for tuning in. I want to remind everybody about a workshop that myself and Nancy Barrows are hosting on October 21st. It's a complimentary workshop called Why Personal Content is Your Most Powerful Tool. You can go to that link right there, bit.ly/personal content workshop. So if you're interested in growing your business, if you're interested in growing your network, learning how you can create more personal content to help you reach those goals and other ones as well. We would love to see you there. It's at 5:30 Pacific time, and it starts 8:30 Eastern time. So we'd love to have you there. And our guest for next week is Shane Shaps of 520 East Brands. And we're really looking forward to having Shane on next week for another great conversation. Jim, do you have any parting words before we say goodbye?
Yeah, Debbie, thank you so much for joining us today, and go Braves.
Thank you, Debbie. And thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of the Tim and Jim Show. We'll see you right back here next week, same time, same place, and have a great week. Bye.